You're watching Forget Being Cool.
It's the first podcast on Forget Being Cool from a bed.
Yeah.
Hey, Jeff.
Bedroom thoughts.
How's it going?
Hey, Dave. Good. How's it going with you?
Oh, 8.5 hours of software updates today so I could use my computer. Although I was going to put stuff up on the website today, but that took 8.5 hours. So,
how'd that go?
Thanks, Apple.
8.5.
At least
8.5.
At least I don't have iTunes anymore. That's the positive. iTunes is gone and dead.
That's what you think.
You're right.
Somewhere in that code, there's iTunes.
Yep, still running in Bonjour.
Bonjour. Oh my gosh. Let me tell you, when you're going through Windows programs, scrubbing your Windows clean, I can't tell you how shady Bonjour sounds.
Yeah, no, it sounds really freaky. I've deleted it, and it completely breaks, like, QuickTime and iTunes.
Why do they call it Bonjour?
Why don't they just call it, like, Apple Backbone or, like, Apple? Like, Apple software.
Anything related to Apple, right?
Right. Anyway, Jeff.
Not Bonjour.
Speaking of Spanish things.
We watched a movie.
We did watch a movie. We will get back to our poster of movies very, very soon. But
once Dave finds it.
No, I have it. It's on the table. I just gotta hang it up
that's
somewhere. Good. Jeff.
Yeah.
I did a show about Breaking Bad for about 6 episodes, and then I still finished the show, and then I told people how I felt about it, which is, I think it's the most overrated show of all time.
Yeah. We watched a movie about an overrated show.
Yeah.
Apparently, according to you.
We watched a very overrated movie, too.
Wow, Dave.
Jeff, so
you wouldn't know a good movie if it came up and slapped you on the neck.
Yes, I would. El Camino is not a good movie.
So, if Breaking Bad gets a sequel movie, why can't Lost?
You know what, Jeff? That's a really, 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 really good question.
Why don't they call the movie Found?
Why don't they call it The Hatch or Dharma or Number 2? They call it Number 2 because it's about Ben being
Cooking with John Locke.
Cooking with John Locke sounds like a great show. Pressing the button with John Locke. Jeff,
Hurley's Whirlies.
You know what this tells me, Jeff?
What?
Is that every conversation about TV goes back to Lost. Therefore, Lost is the greatest TV show of all time.
It also goes back to Breaking Bad.
No, it does not. So,
all right. We watched El Camino, a Breaking Bad movie.
Yeah, a Breaking Bad movie. The story of Jesse Pinkman after the events of Breaking Bad.
Yes.
I'm just gonna get into this, Jeff. I don't feel any more satisfied now than I did when I finished Breaking Bad.
I watched this movie, Dave.
Mm-hmm.
That this movie ends the same way Breaking Bad ended.
Yeah.
Jesse driving away.
You're right.
This didn't solve anything. This
No,
didn't
it didn't.
end anything.
It didn't need to be told. It is completely unnecessary. And everybody online who is saying that this is important and finishes the story is lying. Like it doesn't change anything.
Basically, at the end of Breaking Bad, they heavily hinted that people were dead.
Mm-hmm.
And at this movie, they just confirmed they were dead.
Right.
Walter White's finally dead. Walter White's confirmed dead. Lydia's confirmed dead.
Right.
Todd's cleaning lady is confirmed dead.
Yeah, because that was real important. I don't actually believe, and remind you, this is coming from someone who thought that Breaking Bad was a very well-produced show that was extremely overrated.
Mm-hmm.
And unnecessary and not what everybody claims it to be is the greatest TV show of all time. Jesse driving away at the end, leaving that a little bit open-ended, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is a little bit the same as Jesse's in Alaska.
Driving away in Alaska.
You know, like,
I guess the only question that this answers is, did Jesse get away from the cops?
and I guess the answer is yes.
You don't know that.
You're right. We don't know that. We still don't know that.
Now the real question is, did Skinny get to keep that El Camino? So basically, this movie isn't what I thought it was going to be. It's a 2-hour-long movie about how Jesse escapes from the cops. And most of it, a lot of it, like an hour of it, is flashbacks to when Jesse was like either in custody still, or
in captivity.
Yeah, in captivity, or flashbacks to where he was working with Walter White.
Right. This is one of my major problems with Breaking Bad. I've said this before publicly, and I'll say it again.
Yeah.
My issue with the Breaking Bad flashbacks goes back to the problem that you don't get to fill in the gaps of the story to service the story moving forward. The reason that flashbacks work in Lost is because the events...
Because you love Lost.
No,
That's the difference.
because they take place before the story happened.
So you're saying if Breaking Bad in the 3rd season, they took a time machine to go way, way back in time.
That's the 4th season.
That'd be better? It's the 4th season. That'd be even better?
Yes. Because here's the problem, Jeff. The conversation he has with Walter and the conversation that he has with Jessica Jones, right, is something that should have
Jessica Jones.
It should have already happened. It's something we should have already seen, therefore to service the story. Because what that conversation with Walter White confirms, right, which the show confirms this too, is that Walter was always in it for himself, right?
Oh yeah,
which we knew already. But this is like the moment that you could have showed me that during the actual course of the original show at that moment to show his decline with his conversation with Jesse early on. Because that moment seems to take place way back. Like not in season 4 of Breaking Bad. Like we're talking like season 1 or 2 era Breaking Bad.
Which conversation? Were they in the diner together?
Yeah, where they're in the diner together.
Oh, that was season 1 when they first cooked their first batch.
Right. So why didn't you show? So why didn't you show me that conversation in season 1?
Because this is stuff they didn't think about. They didn't have enough time.
Confirmed.
These are like
Confirmed. Problem confirmed.
These are extras they just added to add to the El Camino story. Even that, those parts of that movie had nothing to do with the original season. That didn't influence what you thought of the original season at all. It was just conversations Jesse had with people.
Yes, but that conversation in context with the rest of the show adds to the entirety of Walter losing his mind from the beginning. And if we had seen that conversation, which we're saying happened, we would have had a better idea of Walter's, like...
What conversation happened in the diner to let you know he was losing his mind?
It's him, like, admitting how much he wanted to do something great. Like, this wasn't about saving his family. It was about doing something impressive. It was about doing something that mattered to change, people's opinion of him.
Was that in the diner scene?
Yes.
Okay.
Which is fascinating. Don't get me wrong. It's a really interesting way to tell that story, except I think that scene should have taken place in season 1.
Yeah.
Not been told to me. Not told to me later after I already know that.
But
that's
it
not
means
storytelling.
nothing to the original story. It's think about it. If Jesse's trying to escape, and as he's escaping because he was locked up, he's thinking of all the previous conversations, and he's just remembering everything that he had to deal with in the years, and he's just running from everything in that past.
it's an interesting concept to say this is Jesse remembering it, and it's like the way you fill in the pieces yourself. Like when you look back at stuff.
Yeah,
That's...
think about if you had a major life event and you're trying to flee from your past and everything, and you're just thinking of everything in your past that led up to this point.
So I'm okay with that. What's interesting there, though, Jeff,
Yeah.
is I wish that El Camino stood on its own without Breaking Bad then.
What do you mean? El Camino is directly related to Breaking Bad.
I understand that it is. I wish that the movie did a better job of being its own independent movie, the way that, like, Serenity is its really good movie by itself compared to Firefly, this show. Right?
So what you're saying is you're looking for a movie that you can watch without watching the show?
Yeah.
Why would you want that?
Because then they fit together really well.
Dave, if they did that, you would watch the movie and you'd be complaining now because it had nothing to do with the original story.
No.
Why would you call it a Breaking Bad movie if it had nothing to do with it? They wanted to make the movie to clear up as much as possible for the end part of it.
Yeah, and they did so much by Jesse still kind of just driving away. They filled in so many gaps.
But he's not being, the cops aren't chasing him.
I mean, they are. He just got away.
You know what bugged me the most?
That the movie is kind of boring?
No, I liked the movie. Okay. I thought it was okay. The thing that bugged me the most is that when Jesse stole the $1 million, got the $1 million from Todd's apartment, and he split up with the other guy, and the other guy had cane welders on it, and you were supposed to. It was like a realization moment where am I supposed to know this guy? And to know this guy was the complete. You felt like you should have known this guy from the original series, but it just ended up, it was just from the movie too. You're like, man, this guy looks like he's significant or nothing. No, not significant at all to the series. Just a new guy they added. But it's am I supposed to know this guy? Why is this a big realization moment?
I felt that way, and what I thought, Jeff, was, God, I don't remember this show at all because I have no idea who that is.
Exactly. I was like, do I know this guy? I don't even know this guy.
Good. I was going to ask you stuff like this. Was I supposed to know who that guy was? Because I didn't.
No.
See, I've only watched the show in its entirety once, right? So,
yeah.
Watching this show or watching this movie, there's a lot of characters I'm like, I don't exactly, I remember that he got locked up in a cage, right? But,
yeah.
I don't remember the details of that.
Yeah.
And, I don't remember him, having to do things for them. I thought he was just kind of in that cage. And I guess he did this one thing so he could find the money, which is only important to the story of El Camino, which once again adds to my Breaking Bad likes to do this thing where they say something happened that they never showed you, and it's important to the plot now, but we skipped it then because we decided we needed to add this so that we can now tell this story moving forward.
They do that in a lot of drama movies.
I'm not saying that they don't do it in other things, Jeff. I'm saying that Breaking Bad does it really poorly.
Even they do it blatantly.
Yeah, it's just...
You're saying you don't like how they retcon stuff.
Yeah, I don't. I wish that they had done the cleaning lady murder disposal during the show.
What does that have to do with the show at all? The show wasn't telling the story of Jesse Pinkman. It was telling the story of Walter White. So I'm saying is if they showed that scene in the original series, you'd be like, that has nothing to do with anything.
Okay, I'm gonna use a Lost example here just so we can have this conversation for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
In Lost, there were a bunch of people analyzing the show to death. Okay?
Yeah.
people looking at every frame, going crazy every single week. And this is why Lost was such a fun show to watch when it was airing. Okay? And I know that people did this with Breaking Bad, freaking out about the end of every episode, talking about it every week. Okay?
Yeah.
During those moments, though, like, there was a picture in Ben's house in season 3, before they go back in time, of all of them dressed up in Dharma clothes in the 70s that was up on his wall. And people saw it and were like, that's kind of a cool thing to say. They're all like in the Dharma, like it's just a picture of all of them back in time that happens to be up on Ben's wall before we did the time travel thing.
So you're saying because that you felt like
it was always meant to happen. It was always set up. Versus Breaking Bad, like, decides that things needed to happen in the past to set things up from later. Versus Lost always felt like everything was planned from the get-go.
I can't believe you when you said everything was planned at Lost from the get-go.
You're right.
That show is so wild and out there that's impossible. So you're looking at two ends of the spectrum. You're thinking of like Lost, where it's like you get the feeling that there was never planned and every season was taken by season, but really it was planned from the beginning. And then you look at Breaking Bad, to where
I feel like Breaking Bad wrote it as they go more often. Versus, and maybe this is the case, right? Because Lost obviously got written as it went too. Lost always used things they set up to continue things moving forward. Versus Breaking Bad decides that things needed to happen in the past to move forward. Versus Lost said, we did these things. They might never lead to anything. Ever.
I feel like Breaking Bad did that as a story choice. Because they could have written a whole story without any of those flashbacks.
I agree. And I think without them, Breaking Bad would have been better. I would respect the story better if it only used things that were established and happened.
You didn't mind those Breaking Bad flashbacks to where it jumped to before the show started?
That doesn't bother me. Well,
it only bothers you when the flashback takes place at another episode junction.
Yes, that's when it bothers me. If you want to tell me things that happened to Walter or Jesse before the events of the show started, so basically from the minute he gets diagnosed with cancer, right? If something happened before that and you want to tell me that, that's okay. If you want to tell me something that happened during the course of the show, like the diner scene after their first cook, right? That feels wrong because we should have seen that from the original story, from the original get-go.
And you're saying that's only wrong in a show, like a series perspective. It's okay to do it in a movie, right?
I mean, I consider El Camino just two
All
more episodes of the show.
What do you think of the Truman Show?
I love the Truman Show.
There's flashbacks in that show all the time.
Yeah, that's a narrative decision.
This is a narrative decision in Breaking Bad.
And all the flashback, it's a consecutive course of events.
I know the beginning of the Truman Show is Truman being born. All the flashbacks in the Truman Show take place over the course of the movie that they retconned.
You know,
I'm just kidding. I'm being particular.
I understand where this is going. That's an interesting way to look at it. The difference is the Truman Show is a 2-hour thing.
Yeah.
In which you're telling me the course of events. See, if El Camino stood better on its own, meaning
by itself.
Yeah, like if the problem with El Camino is I don't think it's even watchable without watching Breaking Bad.
So you think El Camino would be great if it took place maybe 5 years later where Jesse was trying to do something in his own. And you could...
And then you could flash back to whatever you wanted.
Yeah, and you could reference stuff from the original show to tie things up without making it seem like you needed the original show to understand what was going on.
Right. Not to say that it shouldn't treat the show as part of the story, because the show is important to the story. I understand that. But I think El Camino, if it's the Jesse story, would have served better to be its own story versus I think this movie, if you've never seen the show in its entirety, makes absolutely zero sense.
No, yeah, you're right. It's supposed to come after Breaking Bad. You think they would have appealed to a larger audience if it took place sometime after the events of Breaking Bad.
Yeah, and I'm even okay with it taking place and Jesse's on the run from the events of the show. I'm actually okay with that idea. Just set that up a tiny bit. You don't have
what do you mean?
You don't have to give me the entirety of the backstory. Maybe just a couple more like Jesse being mentioned on the news kind of things, and way less references to characters that I don't fucking remember.
What characters?
I barely remembered Todd. Barely. He also doesn't look...
Todd? The main antagonist?
The big guy?
All right, he got chunkier in this movie. This guy got chunkier in the movie.
He got way chunkier.
It looked like he had an allergic reaction to peanut butter.
It's exactly what it looked like. And it's not his fault. It's because the show happened, 5 years ago now?
6 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, see, that's another part of it. Jesse looks pretty much the same.
So does Bryan Cranston.
Right.
Skinny Pete looks the same.
No, he doesn't. He looks way older. But he still looks like him, right? He still looks the same to like, I still know who that is.
Badger looks chunkier.
Oh, yeah, Badger looks... Yeah. You know...
But to be fair with Skinny and Badger, I mean... You could say they look different because they weren't mentioned for their entirety of the last season, basically.
Right. Which is maybe...
So they just probably got that way over the course of Jesse being in captivity.
Right. They don't feel as out of place.
Todd feels the most out of place.
Where I saw Todd, I was like, is that Todd? Like,
Todd had a bang in place.
Oh, yeah, I did. I don't know.
Let me ask you a question.
I felt the same the way about
How
this.
do those welders know he had money in his apartment? That's the main thing. I was like, that's the only thing that got me. Is like, how do they know?
See, but
all they did was weld up one thing for the guy.
See, that's the Breaking Bad shit they pull, Jeff. Is if this show were to continue, if they were to make another movie or they were to make like a second series, they would do a flashback to explain why they knew in the first place to go there. Only so they could use them in their future show as a plot device later.
I think it's just a narrative style storytelling that they chose to do.
You can say that, but then I want Vince Gilligan's notes to say that conversation in the diner happened in season 1, and I want his notes from like 2008 or whenever the show aired that conversation happened.
Why do you want that?
Because I want to believe that they didn't do that conversation in only service of this movie.
They did, though.
But that's dumb.
Why is that dumb?
Because you need to service the entirety of the story. You're telling a
story.
So
you're saying at the beginning of a series, you make yourself, let's say you make a series, you're saying at that exact instance where you're starting the series, you have to know you have to already have lined up every single thing you want to do for the entire show.
Yes.
No matter how long it's run for.
If you decide that you want to do something, you need to have set it up, or you need to set it up moving forward. You can't decide that something happened before it happened, before we saw it. That's not fair.
Why is it not fair?
Because you can't just add things that happen to stories in the middle. That's not how storytelling works. That's like
there's other show. There's books that do that.
You know why Harry Potter is the greatest book series of all time?
Why?
Because it was set up from the first book.
What's another one of your favorite book series?
The Pendragon, you didn't read Pendragon.
There are other stories that actively do this. There's other great shows that actively do this.
Other great shows like Breaking Bad, the show that I think is extremely overrated and not good.
There's other shows besides Breaking Bad that choose to do this. What about
I'm trying to give you an example of where
Pulp Fiction?
Pulp Fiction is an interesting way of storytelling, and I'm okay with that. That feels like a narrative choice. That is an actual creative decision, versus Breaking Bad is actively changing its story as it goes.
It's not changing its story. It's not like it's not retconning to where other stuff in the earlier seasons points are rendered moot. It's not like destroying the series as it's going. It's just trying to add to it as much as possible.
I'm trying to give you an example of where this would be wrong.
I knew this conversation would be sparked back up.
Anyway, Jeff.
I like this movie, but I agree with you that they could have done a lot more service to just... The whole movie was just Jesse Pinkman escaping.
Yeah.
And I felt at the end of the movie, that was an okay movie and everything. And it just shed more light on Jesse Pinkman afterward. It didn't dive too deeply. It's like they had a couple scenes where Jesse Pinkman was having PTSD. That was the only point in the movie they mentioned it. No other part of the movie after that.
That doesn't service anything moving forward at all.
No. So, I mean, there are points in the movie where I was like, all right, that's weird. At the end of the movie, I felt like I gained almost nothing more than what I had at the beginning of the movie.
So here's I figured out the example, Jeff, that I could give you.
Yeah.
Okay? It's like if Shawshank, okay, if they decided to tell you that he asked for the rock hammer after he already shoveled his way out. That's what this feels like to me. Meaning, we don't ever see him ask for the rock hammer. We decide to tell you that at the end of the movie. Like, as if that's the last thing that happened. That's how this feels to me. So
you think that would distract from the story?
I think that would ruin the movie.
You think that would ruin the entire movie?
Yes.
If they didn't have that little scene with the rock hammer.
Yes. He has to have it, and you need to think that it's pointless.
But look at Truman Show. Truman Show has those flashbacks that do stuff like that. Doesn't ruin that movie, does it?
I mean, we don't see him get the rock hammer at the end of the movie.
We see him have flashbacks on why he has PTSD with the water.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those are events that happened before.
No. The movie starts with him being born. Then it jumps ahead 30 years, and then it has flashbacks in between.
None of those events take place during the story of the show.
What if Shawshank started with Andy getting convicted, and then 30 years later where Andy's on a beach sanding a boat, and then it flashes back to the prison sequence?
Yeah, that would be wrong too, Jeff.
But that's what the Truman Show does.
It's not the same.
What's different?
It'd be like if the Truman Show goes halfway through the movie and then they decide to go back to like when he starts to figure it out. It's like if they constantly cut back to him figuring it out. Like events that take place after the 30-year time jump, but before present day. That's what it's like.
I don't know. You just don't like the way it's told like that.
You're right, I don't.
That's your decision. That's your opinion.
I think somebody on the internet will agree with me. Thanks for watching our discussion of El Camino, or as I like to keep calling it, El Capitan, the Mac software update that took 8.5 hours.
That's the real story here.
I'm Dave Moore. That's Jeff Daly. I'm glad you love this movie. Actually, you know what? Tell me, Jeff. Look, obviously I didn't like this movie.
I liked it.
You liked it. Did you love it?
No, I give it a 6.5, 7 out of 10.
Did you think it is necessary to watch?
No. I don't think it tells anything. It does. They say it wraps up Breaking Bad really, really good. And I was like, doesn't wrap up Breaking Bad. At the end of the movie, he's driving a car. Just like what he was doing at the beginning of the movie.
We're in the exact same place.
Away.
We're in the same place we started.
Just 2,000, 3,000 miles away.
Yeah, and now he's got a different name.
Yeah.
From the vacuum guy.
Yeah.
Jeff, I'll see you soon to talk about another movie. Forget Being Cool is coming back when Dave has some free time. Jeff's going to go to sleep because he's got to be at work soon. Bye, Jeff.
Bye.
For more great discussions, hit that subscribe button or visit forgetbeingcool.com.